語会話。
Hello everyone, welcome to our English conversation program. How are you today? Oh, I'm just fine too, thank you. Hello Faith, how are you?
Just fine. Hello, everybody.
Hi Walter.
Hi, Mr. Togo. Hello, everybody.
It's so nice to have you with us again, everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Now, I'd like to begin by listening to the first week's skit. What's it about?
It's about a vacation in the great outdoors.
And the outdoors doesn't get much greater than Yellowstone.
Okay, let's join the Watsons. Please turn to page 6. Here we go.
Welcome to the Watsons, the biggest fish ever. Summer vacation is now at its peak in America. Let's join the Watsons at Yellowstone, the world's first national park. As they arrive...
What's the admission, please?
$1 each, sir.
All right.
Thank you. Enjoy the wildlife.
Where are we heading for first, dear?
Old Faithful. We're staying near there.
Can we really see some wild animals, Dad?
We sure can.
Later, as they're watching a geyser...
It's almost time for it to spout.
Let's get closer and sit on those benches.
There it goes.
Gosh, it went up so high.
It's otherworldly.
What is it?
Hot water coming up from the earth.
Why does it do that?
Well, that's a good question.
We'll see a movie later at the film center which explains all about geysers.
Later, they drive around hoping to see some wild animals.
Why are there so many pine trees dying around here, Dad?
Because pine beetles are eating up their bark.
That's too bad.
Oh, there's a buffalo right ahead of us.
Where?
Right over there.
Oh, it's grazing near the roadside. Let's take a picture.
Don't get too close, dear.
I won't.
The following morning, Mr. Watson and Mark go fishing.
Mark, hold the rod and cast it this way. Okay?
Okay.
After a while...
Oh, I've got a bite.
Reel it in slowly. Easy.
It sure is a big one. It's a cutthroat trout. This is the biggest I've ever caught. Dad, what's the biggest you've ever caught?
You'd better ask your mother. I've forgotten what I told her.
Hello everyone. Welcome to our English conversation program. Today I'm very delighted to be back presenting another guest hour together with
Beth Higgins. Hello, everyone. It's certainly nice to be here and to welcome the guest for this month, Mr. Graham Webster, who's a former announcer of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and is now a freelance announcer and journalist. Let's see what he has to say.
a special welcome to our program, Mr. Webster.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Mr. Togo and Beth. And hello, everybody.
Well, Mr. Webster, it seems that you are sitting on the wrong side of the table. You know what I mean by that. And usually you are the one who interviews people, but today you are being interviewed. And how are you feeling?
A little bit strange because the positions are reversed, but I'll try to be a very good interviewee.
Okay, thank you. But we have to be careful, Beth, because he might start shooting questions to us.
Yes, that would be surprising. I'm not prepared.
Right. So may I begin by asking about your career experience? And what were you doing in Australia?
Well, I was an announcer with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation for about 36 years. I was doing general announcing. I was doing news reading, classical music, light music. I was acting for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation in radio drama, and I was writing features as well. So it covered a lot of activities.
It certainly did. You sound like a jack of all trades. I wondered if it was through one of these or some type of work that you came to Japan first, or was it as a tourist, or how did you first come to Japan?
It was not as a tourist. It was through my work, as you suggested. The Australian Broadcasting Commission, as it was then, it's now called Australian Broadcasting Corporation, like NHK, is a member of the Asian Broadcasting Union. Mm-hmm. And the ABC and NHK have had for 20 years now an exchange system between Japan and Australia. An Australian announcer goes from Australia to Japan, to Radio Japan, mm-hmm. and a domestic NHK Japanese announcer goes from Japan to Radio Australia, which is in Melbourne. And that has been going, well, we did a broadcast on Radio Japan about 4 months ago, celebrating the 20th anniversary of this ABC-NHK exchange system. And I was asked to come in 1965, and I came for 2 years, then I went back to the ABC. I liked it so much, I came back to Radio Japan on exchange for 4 years, between 1973 and 1977. And then I went back to Australia, and now I've retired, and I'm back here as a freelance.
So soon it's going to be time for you to celebrate your 20th anniversary.
Yes, it's a sort of on and off relationship, because it's not been a full 20 years, but a very delightful period in which I've had about 7 years working at NHK in that 20-year period.
And when you came to Japan for the first time, I'm sure you found a lot of things interesting, but was there anything in particular among your colleagues or your friends who are announcers? Did they have anything in common that you had at the same time?
Yes, very much so. I remember the very first day I came to Japan. Naturally, Tokyo looked rather strange. I come from a city of 1 million, Brisbane, which is the capital city of Queensland in Australia, and I'd come to a gigantic city of Tokyo. And this was when NHK was at Uchisaiwaicho, next to Hibiya Park.
I see, not in Harajuku, Washington.
No, I've often looked at the site of Hibiya City now, where NHK used to be. And I was introduced to some Japanese announcers who were specialists at English announcing. And within a few seconds, we were discussing problems of announcing. And one friend, well, he's a very good friend of mine now, but I had just been introduced to him, and he said, one of the problems that announcers have is that often newsroom considers that the best announcer is the one who reads so fast he gets through many, many stories. And I said, well, that's exactly the same problem we have with the ABC. Many editors consider that the best reader is the reader who goes the fastest and gets through. And within a few seconds, we realized we had common problems in our profession, and we felt like brothers in arms.
Apart from your professional interest, was there anything that you particularly remember on your first tour in Japan in 1965? Any particular impression of Japan at that time?
No, well, I had never been to the Orient before I came to Japan, so my first day in Tokyo was my first day in the Orient, and there was so much to absorb, it was rather difficult. The thing that I do remember most was the number of people. My city, as I said, is 1 million compared with, I suppose, it's very hard to work out how big Tokyo is. It all depends whether you include Yokohama, whether you include Greater Tokyo. However, just one story came to mind. Within the first 2 days, we had been kindly given a flat or an apartment in Shibuya. And I remember on a Sunday, I went to the department store to buy a rubbish tin, because we didn't have one. It was Sunday afternoon, thousands of people there. I bought the rubbish tin, and I was going to walk back with it. And I got lost, and I couldn't find my way back. And I was walking through these thousands of people, and I didn't know how to get home. I eventually did, but that was one of my impressions.
With the rubbish tin.
With the rubbish tin.
Well, Mr. Webster, can you tell us a little more about yourself? Probably our listeners are wondering where you were born and grew up. And were you from New Zealand or Australia?
My parents were Australians, and they went to New Zealand. I was born in New Zealand. When I was 5 years old, we came back to Australia, went back to Adelaide, the city of Adelaide. I lived there for 10 years, and when I was 15, went up to Brisbane, and I've lived in the city of Brisbane ever since.
And Brisbane is not quite as large as Tokyo, of course.
Very much not so.
And I'd like to ask you where you went to college, or I guess I should say in the British and the Australian usage, where did you go to university, and also what did you read?
Well, I went to university at the Queensland University, which is in Brisbane, and I started up doing honours in English, because I love English as a subject. However, I failed in my first year in Latin. I got through okay, the rest of the subjects, but I failed in Latin, which I found so hard, and I was told that I'd have to repeat Latin. I thought I couldn't possibly go through another year of Latin. Mm-hmm. And so a friend of my father's, who was a professor of philosophy, said, why don't you do honours in philosophy? And I switched to philosophy, and I did honours in philosophy and psychology. Mm-hmm. And then I did but he knew I was interested in the arts, and so I did my dissertation in the Bachelor of Arts in the Psychology of Beauty, and for the Master of Arts, he suggested the philosophy of Wordsworth. So even though I was doing philosophy, I was still keeping in the arts field.
I see.
And while you were a student, you said you had a little difficulty with the Latin language, but it sounds as if your major, as Americans say, was quite serious. Were you able to have time to do anything else or not?
Well, I was very lucky because I was working at the ABC as an announcer. But fortunately, the ABC studios were next door to the university, and so I was a full-time university student and a full-time announcer. And the reason was I did shift work, and for example, I might start at 5:30 in the morning. My shift would finish at 10 a.m. Then I would dash out to the university, which was 5 minutes run away, dash to the lecture room and sit down in my chair, and at 10:05 the lecture began. And I was able to do full-time university, full-time work for those years.
So you were wearing two hats.
Yes, I was. I enjoyed it, though.
Good. Well, since you're from, so to speak, down under, if I may use this expression, simply to mean you're from Australia or New Zealand, some of our listeners are wondering what are major features of Australian or New Zealand English. Do you have any comment on this point, particularly for the benefit of the Japanese learners of English?
Well, first of all, as far as words are concerned, naturally there are slang words in every language. Mm-hmm. And naturally, Australian has many slang words. But as far as general vocabulary is concerned, it's very similar to American English and British English. There is a difference in accent. I think I should explain that when we speak about Australian English, as far as speech is concerned, that you could consider there are three types of Australian speech. And I'm using the phrases used by phoneticians. Mm-hmm. The first is educated English, mm-hmm. Educated Australian, I mean. I don't like the word educated, but it is the English similar to British English. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there'd be what you'd call broad Australian, where the vowels become rather lazy and dull. Mm-hmm. For example, in a British type of English or educated Australian, you might say, I'm going to town today. In broad Australian, it could be, I'm going to town today. But most people, I think, speak a middle Australian, mm-hmm. halfway between those, which could be like, I'm going to town today.
Mm-hmm. And it's totally intelligible. I mean, it's easy to follow, so I don't think we should exaggerate the so-called Australian accent.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think that there's much problem with communication in various countries in terms of the English language?
Look, I don't think so. I think that
English is English.
English is English. There's not a tremendous difference, really, between British English and Australian English and American English. I'll tell you one of the differences that I have found. Well, I've been in the acting and announcing business, and mm-hmm. one thing that I notice with American English is that, well, of course, and British English too, it's the rhythm. It's the rhythm that's very important. For example, an Englishman could say, are you going to town today? Mm-hmm. And an American could say, are you going to town today? So the rhythm and the sentence tune mm-hmm. can be very different. Mm-hmm. But as long as people get used to those different tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're all speaking in English together, and
Right.
you are from Australia. I'm from the United States, and Mr. Togo is from Japan, but I think we're having no problem conversing. If you don't mind my changing the topic a little bit, I'd like to ask you if you are having any particular things in your work that are of great interest to you now, and what you're doing in Japan now.
Yes, well, what I'm doing now is, first of all, I'm sending back to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation material about Japan, interesting voice reports, which I'm organizing with two other people. One is an Australian and one is a Japanese lady. We send this material back to the ABC for school broadcasts for students who are studying Japanese in junior high school, the age about 12, 13, 14. So I'm sending those back to supplement their Japanese language learning.
Mm-hmm.
I am working at NHK as a newsreader on Radio Japan, and also at Radio Japan I rewrite some of their main programs into idiomatic and simple English. Simple English is very difficult. A lot of people don't realize that the English we use in radio and television is very simple, very clear, and that is very difficult to do.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Webster, but we're running out of time. So I understand that you are particularly interested in staying in Japan, and you have several reasons for that. And so could I ask you to come back next week to elaborate on some of the things that you've mentioned?
I'll be very happy to come back next week. Thank you.
Well, friends, I'm sorry, but this is all the time we have, and let me conclude today's program. And I certainly hope you enjoyed being with us. So long.
Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
担当は東後勝明先生。聞き手はベス・ヒギンズさん。ゲストはグレアム・ウェブスターさんでした。英語会話を終わります。
Follow along first.
Travel in focus. Keep off the grass. The tour Junko and Daisuke joined makes its first stop at the National Air and Space Museum.
Ladies and gentlemen, first we're going to see a movie called To Fly. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Please stay together and follow me.
Oh, what a display.
Excuse me, is that the Wright brothers airplane?
Yes, it is. It's called the Kitty Hawk Flyer.
We must come back later and take its picture.
After seeing the movie,
How did you like it?
I felt like a bird. I still feel as if I were flying.
I wish I knew how they filmed it.
Now, folks, please feel free to go wherever you like and to see whatever you like. Be sure and come back in an hour.
Excuse me, where's the restroom?
It's down this hall on the left.
after a little while,
This place certainly has a large collection, hasn't it?
Yes, it's very impressive.
Which one is Lindbergh's playing?
That one. It says Spirit of St. Louis on its side, you see?
Oh, yes, so it does.
By himself, he flew from New York to Paris in 1927. It was the first non-stop transatlantic flight.
later, back on the tour bus,
Are we all here? Now, folks, our next stop is the capital.
Can we go inside?
Yes, we can. By the way, did you know I used to be a parachute jumper? Guess what the most difficult thing about it is?
You never know where you're going to land.
Right. Once I came down where there was a sign. Keep off the grass.
Eigo Kaiwa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our English conversation program. It's my pleasure to be back presenting the second half of the guest hour together with
Beth Higgins. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here with you and have in the studio again with us Mr. Graham Webster, who we were talking with last Saturday. We hope you enjoyed listening to him. Well, it's always a pleasure to be here and to welcome back our guest for the second half of the interview. And before we speak with this week's guest, Mr. Graham Webster, I'd like to sum up what we discussed last week for anybody who was unable to listen. Mr. Webster worked for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation for 36 years as an announcer. He first came to Japan in 1965 on a professional exchange program between the ABC and NHK. He's been here on and off for a total of 7 years since that time, working as an announcer and a writer in Japan. Well, Mr. Webster, it's very nice to have you with us again today.
I'm delighted that you asked me to come back. Hello, everyone.
Last week we left off talking about your current work in Japan, so I would like you to begin today's program by telling us a little more about that and also how a typical day goes.
Well, I wouldn't have a typical day. I would do different things on different days. But I'm very lucky. I have a great variety of work. And in a week, these are the sort of things I'd be doing. I have to send back to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation voice reports together with a Japanese lady and an Australian journalist here in the city of Tokyo. We send the voice reports back to the ABC, and the ABC puts these voice reports in broadcasts to schools for children who are learning Japanese at high school, particularly the age of 12, 13, 14. They're the ones who listen to those. I'd be going out, getting material, writing scripts, recording interviews, recording voice reports. I also work for NHK at Radio Japan, doing news reading on the general service. I rewrite programs at Radio Japan, some of their main programs which I turn into idiomatic English and especially professional radio English, which is simple, clear, lucid English, which is quite difficult to write.
Easy to understand.
Easy to understand, because if you are listening on the radio or listening to the sound on TV, you've only got one chance to hear those words. You can't look back at the printed page. So it must be as clear as possible straight away. Then I do bilingual television news on NHK at the 7 p.m. bulletin. I've been doing it on Thursday nights. I'm going to do it also on Tuesday nights from a few weeks onwards. That's very difficult work, but very challenging work. I do film narrations for NHK films, which are English versions of NHK television programs, which are sent overseas to be sold overseas and to be entered into competitions. I also do film documentary narrations for outside companies, half-hour public relations documentaries, and I also coach Japanese announcers who are specialists in English announcing. This is not English conversation, it is the professional techniques of professional English speech.
So, it sounds to me as if he works 8 days a week.
Yes, that should keep you very busy. And presumably you do most of your work in English.
Yes.
But I wonder if there will be some occasions in which the knowledge of Japanese is needed, and can you tell us how you meet the situation?
Yes, well, my knowledge of Japanese language is rather rudimentary. I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to expand my knowledge. I went to a 3-year course at a university in Queensland, but it was not a very intensive course, and I've got so much to learn, and I appreciate the problems of speaking a foreign language. So I understand the problems of Japanese people trying to speak English, because I'm a native English speaker trying to speak Japanese, and I know it's hard.
But don't worry, because there are lots of youngsters in your country who are studying Japanese very eagerly,
Sure.
I'd like to ask you, in terms of Japan itself, is there some particular aspect of Japanese culture or Japanese life that you are interested in? And if so, could you tell us why you're interested in it?
There are many things I'm interested in, but let me just dwell on one aspect. I have been very attracted to the understatement and simplicity